Okay, so far we have a nice function here that brings us the information that we want. However, this is a simplified version of the request that we could make. We could add more meat to this request right here on the URL section. So if I try to get some data, I will get this data here, which is all good. But we can change the request and add a few more items here. So if I go right after fetch here and put a comma, I can put an object like so. So putting those curly brackets ensures that we have an object there. But because this is not enough space to put things, we're going to press enter so that we have some space. Here I can specify the method explicitly and say this method I am using is a get method, like so. So I have to put a comma if I want to put more items here because this is an object. So we can check, we can add the method and also we can add some headers. Okay, so headers are added by an object. So headers is an object. We can add more stuff here. Now what you add in the headers is entirely up to you because sometimes you can add content. For example, we say content type like this, and then here I will say content type. Oops, there we go. It has to be a key value pair. And then here I can say something like application /JSON. Okay, so what this means here is that these are the headers I'm sending. This is the headers describe the information that I'm sending in the body. So if I'm sending some JSON, I can write application JSON like this. If I'm sending an image, I can write image JPEG. That way the server on the other side will know that this information that I have sent is this particular type. So now you only write this if you know that all the data that you're sending is JSON. If you're just sending one image, then you're going to write image JPEG. But you shouldn't do this if you have different kinds of content in your request. So maybe you have images, it depends on the type of information. So maybe you want image JSON at the same time. You shouldn't write that type there. You shouldn't give an explicit type. Now there's a lot you can add in the headers. You can Google what headers do and so on. And then also finally here, you can add a body like this. And then the body will contain some content that we are supposed to send. So in this case, we are not really sending anything. We want to receive something. That's why we're using the get request. Get is for getting stuff from a server, and then post is for sending stuff to a server. Okay, so if we did write a body like this is a body, I'm sure we're going to get an error because get is not supposed to have a body because it's not meant to send information, it's meant to retrieve information. So let's see if that happens there. Let me just try to fetch, and immediately I get an error saying window.fetch head or get request cannot have a body. Now on the type of requests here, there's quite an amount of there's several requests you can use here. There's put, there's post, get, head, etc, etc. Now the most common are post and get. The others are not so common, so just don't worry about them. Now if you want more information about all this, just Google fetch. Just say JS or JavaScript fetch, as simple as that, and then go to the Mozilla Developer Network. Now this website right here is very, very useful. If you're going to be using JavaScript for a lot of projects, you need to know about developer.mozilla.org. because any JavaScript issue you have, you probably find information about it right here. Any function in JavaScript, just come here and check what they have, and it's going to give you enough information to know everything about that part. So as usual, my internet really sucks, but we'll give it some time to load. Once it loads, then we can go there and see what's going on. For now, let's go back to our API here, and we see we have that error here. So we're going to remove the body because we do not need it. Yes, save that, and let's try again. Refresh, fetch, and probably this time we get some data back. So this is awesome. Now I want us to understand what's really going on here when we send these headers. So what we will do is, let's use our very own API, since we do have something that resembles an API here. It's just a file, but we'll call it an API for now. So if we go to the folder API, we have this index.php, which contains just some JSON data here. So let's try and read from this one. So I'm just going to change the source here for a second. I'll mute that one, and then I will use my localhost instead. So this one is localhost, like this, /API/API/index.php. So that's my file right there. So I expect to get the JSON data from it. Okay, there we go, JSON data. So it means we have connected to our own API. Now the reason I'm using this is because I want to show you what's on the other side. What does the server actually receive when we send things like this? So if we do send this, all this is sent inside the headers, this section right here. Now the browser also sends its own headers to the server every time you make a request. The headers contain information about the payload or the body of your request, or what you are sending. So it's like, for example, because one thing you have to understand is that information that is sent online is always a string. It's just a string of zeros and ones. There's nothing more than that. Just 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, just like that. So it's very important for the server to know what exactly this is, how to translate this data. So this is why you would put content type in your headers, so that when the content gets to the other side, the server knows what to do with it. Is it JSON? Is it just plain text? Etc, etc. So personally, I prefer to just send plain text and then I parse it myself, because I know what type of information it is on the other side. So here I just want us to check what headers we receive on the API side. So here I'm going to come to this API, and I will disable this information for a second. Actually, we don't need all this anymore. Let me think for a second. Do we need? No, we don't need this. So let's put PHP like that. And what I want here is to check what headers I receive, because that request is coming to this page. So how do I receive the information? So here I'm just going to create a variable and just call it data, and I'll say it's equal to get or headers, like that. So once I do get or headers, this is a function in PHP that allows you to get just the headers that were sent with whatever request came here. So if I try to access this page, there'll obviously be headers there. So I can easily check what those headers are. So if I do that, now I can either save this data to the file here, just like we were doing here, so that we can check it later, or I can simply tell this server to return the same data, because our API here is going to return something. Now, if the page is just empty, it's not echoing anything, it will return an empty page, right? So if I save this for now, and I refresh the page and try to fetch, it has returned something, but I can't see anything because it returned an empty string. There's nothing to return here. If you want the server to return anything, just echo it. So in the same way, we're going to echo that data. So I'm going to say print readable and echo the data like so. Okay, so we are getting the headers that came in, and then we are returning them just so we can see them on our user interface. So back here, I'm going to refresh and click fetch again. Now look what we got here. What we get here is an array containing the headers. And if you look here, content type, what do you see? Application JSON. That's because this is what we told it. So this is the information that the server receives on the other side. And this is a cookie here that describes your browser, and so that it can remember who you are. Okay. So this is data that you save in your session, for example. Not really in your session, but the session ID, because the data itself is on the server. Yes. So this is the information we sent, right? Now, to prove that this is really the information we sent, let's just send some useless information here. I'll put a comma to send another line of content. I'll just say my key, just so we see it's a custom value, and then my key is equal to my value, like so. So we are sending this as headers. So let's come back here and refresh. Let's try to fetch and see what happens, and looky there, we have content type, and then we have my key, my value. So you can literally send any text in the header here to the server on the other side. So when you're trying to access an API, and usually the API will tell you, the documentation for the API will say, you have to send your token in there. So you can easily send the token in the headers, like here. So you can just say token like this, and then you add your secret token here. Usually the secret token is just some random characters like so. Okay, hashes and all that. So let's see that. So maybe this is your token, you can send it like that. So back here, let me refresh and fetch. So you see the token was sent in there. So you just have to follow the rules of that API that you're trying to access, and if they say send your authentication inside the header, you can do it like this. And you can also send, maybe it tells you to send them as auth like this. Maybe it's you have to send them as an array inside an array. You can still do that like this. Now keep in mind that this function, right, these headers here, will parse this object into string, but it won't do that for this, the objects that are inside here. So let's see how that would work. So here in the auth, I'm sending a token. Maybe I may want to send more information like username or password or something, user, my name, something like this, and then the token, etc., saved inside the auth. So if I try to send this, fetch, you see that auth is there, but I have object. This just means JavaScript. This is what the JavaScript sent. It just didn't recognize what this was. It just tried to convert the object into a string. So instead of that, we can do the conversion ourselves. Now to change an object or an array into a string, we just use JSON stringify. That's our JSON encode for JavaScript. It's the same as JSON encode in PHP. So I'm going to do that. So I'll wrap this whole thing, this object, inside JSON stringify. So this function would turn this object into a string. That way we will be able to see it on the other side. If I fetch this time, you see that there's a string here. User, inside auth, there's user, my name, and there's a token in there. So the server will be able to know that I'm actually authenticated here because I have sent the secret token in there. So it's pretty easy stuff here, nothing major. And then now if we send a body, let's see what happens. How do we send a body here? So let me put body. So usually the body is where you send your information, right? Maybe you have key value pairs like name is equal to John and I don't know, age is equal to 25, something like this. So this is our body. You can really send any text here. You can just say this is a body. It's still the body text. You can send images. Post can send a lot of information. Images, all the images that you send via post are converted to just strings. So keep that in mind, that everything you send here ultimately is a string. So I'll change this to post so that it can allow us to send this information. Otherwise get will be cancelled like we saw last time. So if I try to fetch this time, you'll see that I just get the headers. I didn't get the body here. Our authentication is there, but there's no body. Why is that? And that's because in PHP, to get the body of what you send, use the post variable, right? So let me just do this. Print what's inside the post variable like that. Okay, because we did tell it that we are sending this information via post. Yes, yes. So let's come back here and refresh, fetch. Now we get an empty array. Why is that? Well, because the content type here is application JSON. Usually when you're trying to send post data in the normal post manner, you're supposed to tell it that you are sending this in form of, it's like a form that you are sending, right? But in our case, that's not what we are sending. We're just using the post method, but we're just sending string here. Okay, great. Let's see if we remove the content type, if we're going to get anything there. I'm not sure either. So let's try to fetch, and we still get an empty array. Now, in a case where you are trying to connect to an API, or the API is supposed to send you some information to a what is usually called a webhook, you may want to get the information from the PHP input. So let's try and print that out. Now, to get information from the input, you just say file put contents, like I had shown you in an earlier episode, and then you say PHP / input, like that. So this is where you get all the raw data. If you can't find it in the post, you can't find it in the get, just go to this one, you will get it. So I just want to print the result of this, print readable, like so. Alrighty then. So let's come back here and see if we can get both the header and the body. Fetch. Wow. So we have an error there. File put, oh, sorry, my mistake here. We're supposed to get and not put. Okay. So this is the thing. If you have PHP errors on your server like this, they will be returned as the output. Now, there are measures you can take to make sure this doesn't happen, because you don't want to have this when you have people using your own API, because we're going to create our own API. So let me refresh this and try again. Okay, so this time we did get the information from the PHP input instead of the post. If you want to get the data from the post here, you will have to tell it the encoding type of your form, because there's a form encoding type, right? You can say HTML form encoding, like this. What is the form encoding type? And if you can add that there, then you can have information sent as a post request. Okay, so this is the fetch thing I was talking about here. And if you scroll down here, you see that there are good examples here of what you can do with this. So there's several things you can do. You can have this mod CORS, and I should actually talk about this, but I will talk about that in once we start building our own application. Okay, so you see headers here and credentials, cache, method, redirect, body, so you can read about all these and try to understand. But otherwise, these are the basics here. This is good enough information. In the next video, let's see how we can make use of information that we receive from this API of ours. Just a simple thing. And then after that, we can create our own API so that other people can connect to it and get data, just like the way this website is working. All right, I'll see you in the next video.